Shalom Temple Israel. It's Rabbi Wolk, and this week is a big week on the calendar in Israel. This is the week that our Israeli cousins and friends and family mark Yom HaZikaron, Memorial Day for Israel's fallen soldiers and for victims of terrorism, and then transition into celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's Independence Day, which is a lot of fun to be in Israel for that second day. And I have with me two Charlotteans, two people who grew up in Temple, Israel, who are spending the year in Israel. So I'm happy to have Jacob Kapustin and Jack Meltzner with me, who are in Israel for the year on Young Judea Year Course. And I wanted to talk to them a little bit about their experience being in Israel this year. So first of all, thank you guys so much for taking the time. I know it's about 11:15 at night by you guys. As you can see, it's a little bit earlier for me. 4:18 here. So thank you very much. I want to start with, why did you decide to go to Israel after high school instead of going straight to college?
So I was actually planning on going to college,
Hmm.
and I was planning on going to the University of Maryland.
Hmm.
And one day in about mid-June, all my classes went online, and I talked to my family, and I was like, it's really not worth it to spend the money for out-of-state school. So I decided to look at gap year programs, and Younger Day Year Course was the only one that guaranteed that they weren't going to be canceled.
Hmm.
So I went ahead and started my sign up process. And I actually did not have a passport at the time. So I had to get a passport in like 4 weeks' time, which was not easy in the COVID era. So I had to drive to Atlanta to get a passport, and everything, all my ducks fell in a row. And I ended up leaving the States in September, and I've been here since.
Nice. When we meet in person, I'll tell you some really funny passport stories and how quickly you can manage to get one. What about you, Jacob?
I Young Today Year Course has been something that's always been on my mind. My parents went on a year course, my sister went on a year course, and I've had a lot of family members and cousins who've also participated in the program.
Hmm.
So I've kind of known for a few years that this is something I wanted to do, and definitely once COVID-19 began, it was something that it was solidified for me, and it was just the obvious choice for me. So I came, and I've been loving it ever since.
Nice. So you both mentioned COVID-19 as part of your decision and going on year course. And I know, the first part of this year, we were reading about how bad things were in Israel. The people were really locked down. They couldn't go outside more than 500 meters from your house. And then we started to hear a different story about how quickly the entire country was getting vaccinated, about green passports, how life was returning to normal. What's it been like the last few weeks in Israel?
It's been pretty crazy seeing the transition. Like you're saying, when we first got here, our first day out of quarantine, we went straight into lockdown. The first lockdown began around Yom Kippur, and like you said, we couldn't go more than 500 meters from our house. And now nightlife begins to open up. We're able to go to synagogues and like gatherings in public and green passports, and it's really been crazy just seeing the transition that Israel's made.
Got it. Were you guys, as non-Israelis, do you have the green passports on your phone?
We do.
Mhm.
We do, because we have insurance through our program here. And so our insurance company made it very, very easy for us to get vaccinated.
Yeah,
Nice.
it was awesome. The program provided for all 200 and something to get vaccinated pretty early on.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So now that you've been out and about, what's been a highlight of being in Israel?
A highlight for me,
Mhm.
for sure, definitely was I went on a 6-day hike with Jacob in the Golan Trail, and that was a ton of fun. Bonding with 6 guys, sleeping in tents through the freezing rain, struggling with each other. It was a real bonding experience, and I'd say that's probably my highlight so far.
Hiking
For
in
me,
Israel is great. Well, it's one of my favorite activities, hiking in Israel. I recommend, if you have time to do it, a midnight hike through the desert was one of the highlights of my time there. Jacob, what were you going to say?
yeah, for me, I'd say just really seeing Israel as I've seen it before, kind of on the path to normalcy, and just beginning to see people out and about, seeing the shuk back to normal, seeing restaurants open, people dining in, just walking around and experiencing more of the culture that we've just been lacking the past 7 months. It's been great to finally participate in that.
Nice.
And one other thing for me, this was my first time in Israel, and At first, it was kind of odd to me. You'd see soldiers walking around with guns, and if you saw that in America, that would like really be a turnoff. But here, it's like almost comforting for me to see that people are here to defend us. So before I left to come here, I would tell my coworkers I'm going to Israel, and they'd be like, "Oh, be safe. Make sure you're safe," with the connotation thinking that this is an unsafe country. But I quickly realized that is the exact opposite. That I feel more safe here almost.
We could have a great discussion about the difference between guns in America and guns in Israel, but we'll save that for a time when we're not recording. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, there are two big days coming up in Israel. And for Americans, Yom HaZikaron is a very remote experience because, for the most part, we don't serve in the IDF, and most of us have not lost relatives in the in Israel's wars. And Yom HaTzmaut is a day we celebrate, but we don't really get into the spirit of it. So I know you guys haven't experienced it yet, but what's Young Judea planning for Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaTzmaut?
Today we kind of started doing some stuff on our campus called Kiryat Moriah. So Young Judea put on a program for us where we just kind of learned more about what Memorial Day in Israel is like, because in the States, it's all about barbecues and fireworks and just celebrating. And here it's a somber day. It's very different. And so we kind of spent the whole day getting a sense of why it's different, why it's so personal for all of the Israelis here, and just what it's like here.
Yeah, exactly. And something that was interesting to me was the rabbi we have here explained to us that you don't really clap on a holiday like this. It's like silence is showing your respect. And so it was a lot of like thought today and like silent thought.
It's I get the impression Yom HaShoah and then Yom HaZikaron a week later really are very quiet days in Israel, standing for that moment of silence as the siren goes off. So one more question for you guys on a happy note. When I go to Israel, I love to eat. Great restaurants in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv. When I was younger and I would go, I loved fast food, like the McDonald's, the places that I wouldn't eat in America that I could eat in there. Then I learned there are better restaurants in Israel. Could you make some recommendations for people in Charlotte who might visit Israel in the hopefully sometime near future? What are some restaurants you like in one of the big cities?
Yeah, so we lived in Tel Aviv for a little bit more so far. So one comes to the top of the head that's in Tel Aviv, and it's called Old Man in the Sea. And it's like give you a whole plate of like 20 salads and big main courses, a lot of seafood. And it's in a really cool part of town of Tel Aviv.
Nice. Is it on the water?
It is right on the water. It's actually in Jaffa technically, but it's pretty much the same city.
Got it. Yeah, it is. Walking down the beach, you can get from Tel Aviv to Old Jaffa.
And yeah, for me, I definitely love that restaurant as well. But another restaurant that I frequented in Tel Aviv would probably be a burger place called Vitrina. Really good burgers, really good chips, as they call it here, fries. Yeah, great restaurant.
You guys made me hungry already.
And one place in Jerusalem that's really good is Crave, which is just like a burger bar and like burgers, fries, all that good stuff.
Nice. When I, my trips in my early 20s, I loved Burgers Bar. It's a place in Jerusalem. It was like one restaurant when it started. Now it's a whole chain. I don't know if it's quite as good anymore, but that was a very fond memories of Burger Bar.
Oh yeah, it's still all over the place.
Yeah.
Along with all of the shawarma chains that are all over Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, for sure. Burgers Bar is a big one.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll celebrate Yom HaTzmaut here with a barbecue in my backyard, but not quite the same thing. So thank you both for taking the time to speak with me today and share some insight into your experience in Israel with everybody here in Temple Israel. And I hope you have a meaningful Yom HaZikaron, have a great Yom HaTzmaut, and enjoy the rest of your time in Israel. And I'll look forward to the time when we can actually meet in person, which is still somewhat of a novel idea here in Charlotte.
Yes.
Nice.
Good talking to you.
Thank you.